Okay, welcome to the live session. Hi, Angela.
Hi.
So, okay, so this is where you were on this assignment last week, and then you put the wall in, and you got some cool fill in there as well, I see. And then looks like you added some extra, at least another object.
Yeah.
Is there anything you want to talk about here?
Not really.
Okay. Let's see. Let's look at this against your reference. I mean, you're probably looking at this thing like, what's with all the blue, right? I mean, it's like, I don't see that in the reference. My guess is that it is in there, you know. There's so much green going on that you don't see it, but you know, as a night scene, like typically, whether this was shot, you know, in a studio or an actual exterior, you know, you would have some blue fill in there as your base. So I think, you know, what a couple things you could do with this exercise, if you want to keep going with it, you could sort of lower those levels of blue, or you've got two lights, right? Two fills.
Yeah.
Maybe leave one, you know, depending on whatever makes sense, the same color it is, and the second one, go halfway between your green color and your blue color, and sort of see what that does.
Okay.
Because I mean, like, well, you know, this area. Actually, sorry, let me pull out my tablet here. Like, for instance, I mean, oops, sorry. Let me see, we're doing something weird. Okay, so, oops, yeah, what am I doing wrong here? Well, anyway, sorry. So, I mean, this area is pretty blue and dark, you know. So, I mean, you could lighten that up a little bit, but I think, I mean, there's some interesting things happening like around here, right? Where you're getting the blue and the green mixing. And like this feels more natural to me as far as like a, you know, like a well-lit scene than this, because this just feels monochromatic. Like you kind of have one color going on. And you really, even if it's subtle, and especially if it's subtle, you kind of always want a couple of different hues, just the same way that you want a couple of different values. You know, it gives you something to create hierarchy with. It enriches the image always. So, you know, I mean, this area is probably naturally your greens and your blues are mixing pretty well, and maybe you have less green on the edges, which is why it's getting more blue. But you can also, you know, either move more lights around or move those lights around or add more, or start playing with the actual color temperature of your fill lights a little bit, so that, you know, you keep one blue, you go kind of in between with the other ones. Maybe, you know, I mean, I know that's not exactly what the reference looks like, but you know, it's a nice way to introduce some subtlety into something like this. And then I think, you know, lastly, a big part of this image is the volumetrics coming off of these, you know, fluorescents or whatever, future fluorescents, whatever they are. And yeah, you should do that too. Have you played with volumetrics at all? Angela? I can't hear you. Yeah, I can't hear you. I don't know if that's me or if it's you. Can you other guys hear me? I hope.
I can hear you. I can't hear her though.
Okay. Angela, we
Hey,
can't hear
I can hear you, but not Angela.
Hello?
Hi, Angela.
Can
Now
you
we
hear?
can hear. Yes. So have you played with volumetrics much?
No, not yet.
Okay, whoops. That would be a good thing for you to do. I don't know if that's going to work with these, if these are emissive, right? It's an emissive material on a cylinder or something.
Yeah.
Yeah, so you might need to put in an area light here, a cylindrical area light, and then turn the volumetrics onto that
Okay.
and start to see what that does. And then you're going to start to get effects, more like what's going on here.
Yeah, sure.
Oops. All right, so are you going to keep going with this exercise for a while? Or are you going to pick something else up, or what are you thinking?
I think I'll pick something else up.
Okay, yeah, try the volumetrics quickly, and just it's a good thing to know anyway. It's
Yeah.
very useful, and then yeah, start something else.
Okay.
All right, great, good job.
Okay. Thank you.
Ruby, you don't have anything new, do you?
No, not today. Sorry.
All you
I've been
guys.
having lots of crashes, so it's like
Oh, no.
it's very really slow. Yeah.
Oh yeah, it happens, unfortunately.
Yeah.
Let's see here. All right, well, I guess in that case, we're going to move on to some of these other pieces. So, hey, Chandler, you're not here, but we'll talk about your thing. Anyway, I see you made the changes that I talked about last time. I don't know. I know this was primarily a texturing exercise, so I don't know how far you want to take the lighting. But actually, just like we were talking about with Angela, this is a good place and time to introduce volumetrics. I mean, it's in your reference as well, which I don't have here, unfortunately. But something. Oops. Whatever your source is, like it would be cool to see some of that happening here, and potentially affecting characters as well, because you can get some nice shadows. Okay, as far as just the composition of the shot as it is right now, I think a couple things you need to do. The table, the poker table, and its sort of iconic green is really hard to see because it's so dark. So you need to pick that up. Like, so one thing, like if wherever your source is up there, once you sort of add the volumetrics, even though this is felt, you'll get kind of a brighter spot in the middle here, which I think will help you a lot anyway. You might pick up some specularity on the chips as well, which will make it feel, you'll feel the light up there. And actually, like even Octopus Dude, pick up some highlights on his suckers, anything that, is kind of wetter. That'll help. Your eyes are still pretty blown out. I think they're a little too bright. And, I had said, try to like do like maybe an ambient occlusion pass to get some contact. Oops. All right, my thing keeps screwing up. To get some contact shadow in here. Oh, way too strong, but that'll help round out your eyes a little bit, which they kind of need. Also, you know what? This shadow right there is really sharp. And so it makes me think that whatever your overhead source is probably too small, because you're getting very crisp shadows. And you can broaden that a little bit. Actually, I don't know how many lights you have in here, because you got to fill somewhere, and that overhead light. One thing you could do maybe is take your overhead light and make it really big, like the size of the table, and reduce its intensity a lot so that it's more of a fill, more of a room fill, and then add that overhead volumetric light sort of in its place. So you get two levels. You get a little bit of fill for everything, but then you'll get a much brighter hotspot in the middle, which will help. I think as far as the read of the shot, I'm still getting a little bit of confusion between, the cards here, the opponent cards, and the octopus and his cards, because these whites are still pretty similar. So I think, you need to separate the foreground cards more. And I think the way to do that, because you've already got some DOF, which helps. Excuse me. I think the way to do that is to cheat down the value of these cards a little bit. Just make them a little bit darker. It's not like they're going to go black or anything, but it's enough, or whether it's just in comp or through lighting, depending on how they're being struck, especially because they are pointing down a little bit, like they're not shadowed, but they'd be slightly shadier than the side, the face card side of the opponent cards that are facing the light. So I mean that'll help give you the foreground, background, and the opponent hero thing that you really need. Beyond that, I mean, if you were to continue with this, you probably need something in the background, because just black is a little too much, or too little rather. I don't know if you want to go that far, because that's a whole different exercise once you start dressing in background stuff. But all right, I mean, good job, keep going. Or if you're going to move on to a new one, let's look forward to seeing that. Let's see. Bipul. Okay, so I see the changes you made, and yeah, I think it helps. So this is before. No, sorry, the other way around. Before, after. This is much for everybody else. Before, a little bit too bright here, just a little bit, but we wanted it bright enough, filled enough to be able to sort of identify that he has a tattoo and a bruise. And then we were also going to lighten up the old guy's hair, his eyebrows and his mustache, so they read clearer. And I think that's just the right amount. And I think the whole frame is really nicely balanced. And I think you're done with this. Looks great. All right, so on to your new one, which I think is off to a great start. This is fantastic. So let's look at your Toy Story reference, Toy Story 2 reference here. I like that you're going kind of polar opposite from your last one, which was moody and tragic and dark and criminal. And this one's extremely bright and airy and childlike, and the scale is completely different. So that's great. And I think, you're off to a great start here. It's just really nice. Let's see. I mean, maybe, the shadows are extremely filled here. I mean, it's a color key. It's a painting, so they're always a little bit much. But what does make this that sort of brilliant morning look that I think you're going for, or is the amount of fill and bounce, like specifically the bounce that's coming off the floor back onto everything, really in every direction. And you know, we're exposing for the interior, so the exterior light is totally blown out. You know, it's white coming in, and so the rims are all super hot and white, and the bounce, you know, there's this beautiful, you know, golden bounce and fill on everybody. So, you know, Woody is definitely brighter underneath his jaw, as is Jesse and everybody else, you know, because all of this is kicking back up again. And you see that in the room as well, like this area, which is kind of excuse me, on the shade side of the window, is, you know, it's relatively flat, but it's still quite bright. And then you have areas where there's a little bit of modulation in the surface, where the undersides of these moldings on these cabinets are reacting the same way that Woody's chin is. You know, it's getting a lot of bounce light, which looks great. I mean, same thing with this desk here. Like the underside of the tabletop is getting that, and then nearer to the floor, it's brighter than it is higher, which is, you know, a little bit different than what you tend to think of lights, you know, like a sunlight situation being. Actually, Michelle, I mean, this is an interior version of the same, you know, lighting scheme and lighting problem you have out in the open, where it's extremely bright and it's bouncing off basically a giant reflector card coming back onto the characters. In this case, you know, the extremely bright source is being funneled through a window opening, but it's still bouncing off this floor and kicking back up again. And it's like, it really gives you that like glorious sunlit feeling even inside. So you've definitely got a lot of that going on already. I mean, you know, the dog's got some nice bounce. There's, you know, these areas are pretty nicely filled already. Maybe it's a tad on the cool side. I mean, I you know, I've been pushing you guys to have you know, sort of cool ambient fill, because that on the shade side, it's always a little blue. It's always bluer than you think it is, even indoors. So that's okay. But what I would really like to see here is getting more of the undersides of these drawers, and even in here, under this cabinet, some of this light bouncing back up into those, and so you get the same sort of feeling as what's happening in this giant wardrobe or cabinet or whatever it is. That kind of thing will help quite a bit. So I mean, your shadow areas are fairly neutral, so I don't know, like, you could try going a little bit bluer, or in this case, you know, since there's so much light pouring in and we're kind of exposing for the sunlight, not quite as much as we are here, which, you know, you might want to consider that, just trying that as well, and exposing everything up. You could do that in Nuke too. You just, you know, slam everything up a little bit, see how it feels. But so you know, the fills and the bounces will be warmer too, but that should be interacting against a cool base. Like if that sunlight, like if the sun passed behind a cloud all of a sudden, it doesn't make the interior of the room any cooler than it would be when the sun is totally pouring in. Like the base is still the same basically, but you have the addition of the warm light, both direct and indirect, so affecting, you know, certain different surfaces, especially the bottom surfaces. Like, you know, this situation here on this desk thing, where the bottom of it is brighter than the higher surfaces and the underside of the tabletop. Like, you know, you've definitely got some of that going underneath this chair and the dog. You know, a little bit more of it around, I think, will help you get that feeling. And maybe it's a little bit gray in these shadows, and you can warm them up a little bit. Like this is really nice here, right? So either this goes cooler with some warm hits because of the bounces, or maybe you let the whole thing go warmer. I don't know. You just got to play with that and see how it feels. I think texture-wise, I know you said you're working on the textures. Everything is simple, and it's perfect for reflected light scenario, except this wood stuff on these cabinets. The cabinets themselves are a little weird looking because they're all face and no drawer. But I would this wood grain isn't the way that it would be, when you build cabinets, and it's pretty distracting. I would really, I think you should just make this like a painted cabinet. Just keep it really simple, like these chairs, so that you have a pretty flat background to just play light off of. I think it'll be nicer. Like the gray is not working so great, but I think that's because it's a little bit dark back there. So if these were just, well, you don't want them to be white because of the dog, but just if not untextured, very little texture. I think that'll clear things up quite a bit. And I noticed that, and this is a very long shot. And it's actually about the lizard, not the dog. So I'm sure it's difficult to render the whole thing, but break it up into beauty frames, probably like 10 frames or so. And let's start looking at all of them, because I think, the room looks like it's going to be pretty well lit already. And I think, if you play with the fills and the bounces a little bit more, it's going to be really nice. And we really need to see how that lizard looks when he pops into the scene and he's up against the table and in the bowl and everything else, because ultimately it's actually more about him than it is about this dog. Dog looks great. I mean, he's the perfect kind of dog to pick up the light that you want to play with. So yeah, excellent start. So keep going. All right, guys, that's all the stuff, the material that there was to review, and you guys don't have anything specific. So anything you want to talk about, or questions or something? Michelle, Angela, Ruby, anything?
I have a question, but it's kind of technical. Like I said, I've been having like lots of crashes, and I noticed that it always crashes on like specific frame. So would that mean that my scene got corrupted somehow or something?
It does kind of sound that way. Is it I mean, there's not anything particularly heavy in that frame that's animating on or anything, is there? It's all continuous.
Yeah, it still continues.
Yeah, that does sound like there's something funky that happens to live at that frame, which sucks. I don't really know how to tell you to troubleshoot that. I mean, you could, copy the scene and then delete half of it and see if that crashes. And then if it does, then make another copy of it and delete the other half and see if it will render. I mean, it's a little hard because God only knows what you're actually rendering, but and try to hone in on what the actual, hopefully, it's geo or something, or if you can kind of, hone in on what in the outliners seems to be the trigger. Other than that, I don't really have any ideas for you. I'm not really a Maya guy.
Okay, thank you.
Sure. Michelle, Angela, anything you want to talk about in your next stuffs or anything?
I think I'm fine at the moment. I
Okay.
can't think of anything right now.
Okay.
Me too.
All right. In that case, thanks for coming, and I will we'll do this again on, what is today? Today's Tuesday, so Thursday. Hope to see you then.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah,
Bye-bye.
bye-bye.
Bye bye.
Yeah.